Welcome to Storytelling with Lindsay Bednar. So, Mitch, here we are. It's 9 months after our first meeting, and by the time this airs, your book will be out and you will be officially a published author. Pretty cool.
How exciting is that? Kind of surreal, right?
It's always such a surreal process. Yeah. And watching projects come together when they started as the brainchild of my authors is, it's the coolest part of the process. And the way that we got connected, I think, is pretty awesome because there were several pieces of synergy in there that I want to lay out. I think it kind of sets the stage for our conversation today. So explain how you and I got connected.
Well, Lindsay, as you know, I have been in the office furniture business for many, many years. And your husband, being the champion that he is, has been one of the top producers of my particular line. And he and I were on the golf course. I was rewarding him for his great performance, and plus he's just a fantastic guy to spend time around because he's a people lifter, and he's never met a person that doesn't become his friend. Everywhere on that particular day, as a matter of fact, he bumped into somebody and, "Hey, Gary, how you doing?" And they had known each other from some situation. But anyway, as we were enjoying our round of golf, and he, as usual, was playing quite well, and I, on the other hand, was not, but that's okay. In passing, I said, I think I want to write a book. I might have a couple of books in me. And he got this smile on his face, and he just looked at me, said, he goes, "I may know someone that could help you with that." And that was the seed that was planted. And as you also know, I've been planning to do something with the book because I've just felt there was an opportunity and a need for something around this particular topic, gosh, for decades. But it never fully came together. Like so many other authors, I didn't know how to take it from idea and concept into a finished marketable product.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a huge landscape to wrap your head around. I was in the same shoes in 2016. So, yeah, I get it. And, I think there were probably more than this, but there are three pieces that stick out to me that really made all of that so like synergistic. The first one that you already touched on was energy. And yes, my husband Gary has this bright magnetic energy, but as do you. And so it makes sense to me that when the two of you get together, there's just synergy that happens. So
Thank you.
yeah, it's so important, and it's something that you talk in your book about, who we spend time with. And so that's one piece. Another piece is you speaking your dream and your passion project into existence. I think people take for granted how important it is to talk about and actualize what it is we really want to do. And you and I have talked about before, before I was a publisher, I was a teacher. And when people would ask me what I did for a living, I would say I'm a teacher, even though I was publishing on the sides. And so projects were coming to me just kind of here and there. But once I left teaching and stepped into publishing full time, and I started to say I'm a publisher, it was like the universe rearranged itself. It's like, oh, this is what she's doing now. And so you saying I want to write, that just started shifting things around for you. And I think people take for granted how important that is. Go ahead.
I couldn't agree more. Me personally, I call that the fingerprints of God. And one of our powers on this earth is the spoken word. And one of the analogies that I use in my book is if we stop and listen to what's coming out of our mouth, it may be a huge opportunity for improvement. An OFI. So I learned that one years ago, back when the quality movement was first introduced. And I'm an older than dirt author. I got to this a little bit later. 64 trips around the sun before I figured out that I was actually going to do this, but that's okay. And one of the analogies that I use in the book is that our words literally are paving the road in front of us. And if the road is filled with potholes and detours, and as individuals we constantly find ourselves in the ditch, hmm, we may want to examine what's coming out of our mouth. And if the road, on the other hand, is smooth and very few detours, and there's always going to be obstacles and challenges. That's the nature of life. Uh, Chances are you've learned to control your tongue. And for whatever reason, that particular truth uh, seems to be rather evasive, especially in today's culture. A lot of people don't, they kind of let their tongue loose in very unbridled ways. And you don't have to look too far to see that. Pretty much the evening news, anytime you want to turn it on, you're going to see people going a little bananas. So, but yes, I could not agree more. What you speak is what you get.
Yeah. You touch on that a lot in the book. That's a portion of it, and in addition to how you start to speak things into existence, whether it's the way you see your potential, the way you see yourself, uh, the other piece of this like synergistic connection, I think, was that you had identified your purpose and you were starting to pursue it. And so, the energy was there. You were speaking it into existence. You knew what your purpose was, and you were going to start pursuing it. And so that's what we're talking about today is purpose, and beautifully titled your book, The Power of Purpose, which, when we first connected, I just adored you, your energy, your warmth, your humor, your wisdom was like, yep, I'm in. And then you said the name for
Thank you.
your title, and I was like, oh, the power. Why didn't I think of that? That's brilliant.
I checked yesterday, by the way. There's more than one person that has used that title.
Uh,
However, none of them have used the subtitle, and that is a guide to help you develop yours. So, and interestingly enough, Lindsay, as I mentioned before, it has taken me 64, almost 65 trips around the sun to understand that my purpose is to help other people develop their purpose. And as you know, one of the things that we discuss in the book, and I say we because Lindsay has been such an instrumental part in making this happen, pulling it together, helping me organize my thoughts. I many times have said to her, I said, well, okay, you're going to take my mess and turn it into a message. And that's precisely what she did. For all you aspiring authors that might hear this, that's one of the many values that she brings to guiding you through this process. So I could not endorse Rodney K. Press and what Lindsay does any higher. She just is outstanding. But interestingly enough, the thing about the book that I'm beginning to understand is, while it lays specific purposes or a specific plan and action steps to help you determine your purpose, equally, if not more importantly, it also equips the reader with the tools to help them develop and actually act on that purpose. One of the things that I lay out in the book, I talk about the fact that uh, one of the primary barriers to any of us accomplishing or really developing and acting on our purpose is fear. And it's been my observation that fear in its many forms has kept great books from ever being written, homes from being built, movies from being made, uh, different types of uh, gosh, mission trips or
Mhm.
you know, churches being well, pick the particular topic. It it's kept those inside people's heads. And I guess more than anything else, what my overarching purpose is in this walk that I am now pursuing is to help get those things released. One of the things that we talk about specifically in the book, and you and I had discussions because we felt this was important to get it right. What is it that only you, with your particular set of gifts, skills, the tone of your voice, the different things than if in my faith walk, God has blessed us with your gifts. What is it that only you can do? And interestingly enough, here is the key defining point in that statement that if you don't do it, it's not going to get done.
Yeah.
And when that's unlocked, I get goosebumps. I have goosebumps right now just talking about it.
I do too.
There's a well of creativity, a well of energy, a well of resources, and as you described it, the universe kind of falls into place. Uh, I'm a bit of a musician. I learned to play the guitar in my teens. I was blessed with a bit of a voice. I love to sing. It's always been music has been a huge part of my family. It was a part of the way that my wife and I met each other. But as a guitarist, in the early days, we didn't have electronics built into our instrument that would automatically tune the instrument. So we used a tuning fork. And for anyone that knows music, and I know this only because I've been around it a long time, whenever you hear an orchestra tune up before the performance, you always hear someone, generally somebody in the wind department, I think, the wind section of the orchestra, they play what's called concert A. And what concert A is literally is 440 vibrations per second from a scientific standpoint. Well, I've got this little tuning fork that I used to use to tune my guitar, and I would play a harmonic on the instrument, boing the tuning fork on, the desk or whatever was close to me, and I'd put it on the body of the guitar, and that would amplify that particular tone. And instantly you could hear whether you were in or out of tune. Well, interestingly enough, uh, I my gift has come to me musically in an auditory fashion, and that means that I didn't understand this was a gift, but as I got older and talked to people, they would say to me, "Well, how did you learn that song?" And I'd say, "Well, I just listened to it." And they'd go, "Well, didn't you have the music?" And I would go, "Well, no." I could kind of tell what they were doing. And I went, "What?" And I didn't understand it, but that was my gift. I can kind of see the chords in my head. Well, anyway, my point is, I'm rambling a little bit. Forgive me. I have kind of a sensitive ear, so I'd put that tuning fork on my guitar, and if it was way off, it was kind of like you did, and then you would tune it, and immediately, the moment that your guitar was in tune with what they call concert A, it's just this the instrument sounds better. The instrument's designed to play in that perfect pitch, perfect tuning. That's analogous to me for what the experience is when you finally figure out why you're here. Why are you on the planet? And one of the reasons that I've enjoyed working with you so much, Lindsay, and I continue to learn because as we've discussed, I'm, semi technologically challenged. I don't get all of well, I shouldn't say I don't get it. Let's just say I haven't used all of the tools that are out there for the individual now to be able to self publish and effectively get the word out to large numbers of people through the net and this whole idea of social media. And I've just done a little digging around on some of the things that you've already created, and frankly have been blown away. But back to my original point, the thing that I have loved working with you on is the fact that I know you are in your purpose. You're walking in your purpose. And it's just you are as excited as the author is, equally, if not more excited, when the vision of whatever it was they were trying to pull together with their book. You're like a new mom. You're like, this is fantastic. That's
I
that's it's
know.
so rewarding to work with someone that gets and feels that way. Because you and I both know you don't have to look very far to find people that, frankly, they aren't living their purpose. They aren't very excited about their life. And one of the questions that I ask in the particular section on attitude, and your husband and you are both shining examples of this. So is my wife. She lights up a room.
She does.
When she walks into it, people are like, oh, I want to go talk to this person.
Yeah.
So the question I ask in the area of attitude, and I've always asked my children this question, are people happier to see you coming or going? And if the answer is the latter, there might be another opportunity for improvement. And why is that? So uh, another thing I say in the book, and I've learned this over the years through exposure to a lot of different things, but I literally would be remiss if I didn't specifically point out that my wife and I's involvement in our direct selling business. Years ago, we built it to a very successful level, and then the need to raise our family took a little bit more of a front seat. But nonetheless, we've remained plugged into that and really enjoy a lot of the different products and things that this company has to offer. But we were introduced to a systematic way to grow and develop ourselves. And out of that involvement, I remember a specific talk that someone gave, and their definition of success was the progressive realization of a worthwhile dream or goal. And I've added to that while in pursuit or in alignment with your purpose. So it's, I don't know that you ever get there. And I don't think you'll ever help enough authors,
Hmm.
but I think the joy comes from the fact that you're helping the next one right now.
Hmm.
And then you move, you keep on living your purpose. But more than anything, as I said before, this book, I believe, is equipped with the tools to help people let all the wonderful things that are inside of them out. And in my that to me is absolutely invaluable. How do I know that? I'm a living, breathing example. Here I sit.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you spoke to one of the issues. You spoke to fear of like, why do you think a lot of people lack purpose in their lives? And I think there there are a lot of people, or they're taking certain things for granted that could offer them so much purpose because they're looking, for more, for better, not recognizing their own internal worth. And like you said, how our own unique gifts, that how we show up and how we offer them to the world, that's it. So yeah, why do you think there are people that lack purpose?
Well, the the answers to those questions, Lindsay, really lie within the individual themselves. Each one has to answer those questions. However, to me, the key is, if people don't understand the barriers and the impact that those can have on their ability to grow and develop as a person, because I really believe that that's one of the key things that our creator is looking for from us, is to do our very best with whatever gifts or talents we've been given. If from a scriptural standpoint, one of the great chewings out, I'm not sure if that's a word, but in scripture is the story of the talents, where the individual that received, and I may not have the numbers right, but the net result, if I remember, the one that received only the one went and buried it in the ground. The other invested, the other took it and did something productive and took that, what he was given, and developed a return, what they were given, and developed a return on that was many, many multifold over what they were given, and then gave that back to the master. And the one that went and hid it in the ground was the one that just got, the tongue lashing. So um, I think there might be a small message in that particular parable, meaning that we are, uh, it's in our own best interests to try to be and do all that we're capable of doing. But back to your question about why is it? I think it's because people, perhaps for whatever reason, and you and I both realize, anyone listening to this realizes the the speed and chaos that life can be.
Mm.
It's just, we can be so busy being busy that it's quite easy to not fully stop and reflect. And I think because we get so busy being busy, and by the way, am I condemning any of these things? Nope. That's life on planet Earth, right? Because we many times are so busy raising our families or earning a living, all those things, of course, need to be done. But if we don't know that these things are even barriers or issues, how can we overcome them? And so many times, one of the things that I call out in the book is my experience when I read at 23 years of age, because of my involvement in uh, entrepreneurial endeavors. I was given a book titled The Magic of Thinking Big. And Lindsay, it blew my mind.
Mhm.
I was like, what? I remember reading it, and I said to myself, there's a difference between the way people think. What does that mean? There's positive and there's negative. And one of the, I guess, the anvils that I guess I dropped on my own head metaphorically is that my attitude stunk. I had a really negative attitude. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. And equipped with the things that I learned in that book, I began to look around and go, hmm, boy, there might be something to this. I see now that this particular individual that has accomplished this or done this or is moving in this particular direction, sorry, easy for me to say, they're they're operating in this fashion. Hmm. Wow. And then on the other hand, I would look and go, oh, okay, so I see that it's being played out. Listen to what they're saying. Hmm. Look at so it was the, what do you call it, the light bulb of life went off in my head. It was like, wow, I didn't,
Yeah.
that was the beginning of how I got to the point to write that book. And that happened, at age 23. So that was a long time ago. So I've had to go through life's experiences to get to the point where I was capable of articulating and pulling this all together. But the good news is, I'm pretty doggone sure in this book that we've covered a lot of it. And if people will take what in many cases, it's the other thing that I've learned in dealing with people over the years is many times people, as you're talking to them and introducing an idea or a concept, they'll be shaking their head and going, "Yep, I know that. I know that. Yeah, I've heard that before." Okay, let's ask the $1 million question. Are you doing anything with that information? Have you applied it? Are you, has it resulted in perhaps a change in your behavior? And to me, that's the missing ingredient. That's the key hurdle that people have to be aware of in order for them to move forward in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things you talk about in the book is the difference between being self-focused and others-focused, which I think is such an important conversation, especially right now in the way we are in society and how there is a tendency to be so incredibly self-focused with um, the amount of the prevalence of social media, with the amount of like self-discovery, which is fantastic, but there is a there is a like a balance between the way that you focus on yourself and then figuring out how you serve humanity, what your purpose is, what you're here to do. And so um, yeah, what is the difference between being self-focused and others focused? And
That's a very insightful question, Lindsay. Thank you for asking it. Self development requires that we examine ourselves, and it requires observation and introspection. We have to look at ourselves. I think that's a good part of perhaps having your arrows in. But if those arrows remain in all the time and you're only focused on yourself, then you can't give back anything that you have to offer. The particular descriptor in the book that we developed is around people that are not living their purpose, and the arrows focused in. Uh, I mean, I would say one of the key descriptors of uh, many of the people that make up the national conscious right now would be narcissistic. And I say that with all due respect and a lot of love and concern, because like me at 23, I didn't know there was anything different. I kind of thought life happened. I wasn't aware that there was anything to do around having a good attitude or a bad attitude, a different way to think. I didn't understand that all accomplishment in life, anything, whether it's uh, uh, building a business, whether it's creating a foundation and helping people in other parts of the world, or helping Tim Tebow comes to mind. Gosh, his true purpose is to, he's working diligently right now in the area of trying to make a dent and minimize and stop human trafficking.
Mhm.
And his platform, of course, was sports. That's what allowed him to get to the point where he's has the audience that he does. But I mean, talk about a hero, and talk about walking your talk. That guy is amazing. He would be a textbook example of someone that is others focused. He's always looking at life. What can I do to help someone else? And many times I've observed that, knowingly or unknowingly, and I would posit, Lindsay, that it's more often unknowingly, people that perhaps are not reaching their potential in life, or not walking in their purpose. A lot of times it's from a lack of equipping. Either they haven't sown into themselves, or no one else has sown into them. They haven't had examples that provide the opportunity for observation. Their environment around them many times tells them really only one thing. You talked about that, uh, and what a wonderful experience it was with some of the troubled youth that you taught uh, as a part-time educator in your portion where you tell your portion, you tell your story in our book, in my book, and how you were blown away by uh, the development that you saw in not all, but many of these kids when you were able to equip them with a different way to think.
Mhm.
Is that's an accurate statement, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, it was my favorite part of teaching, no question, is having relationships with these students where I felt I was mentoring them in altering their mindset in that what they felt was possible and raising that ceiling. And, you know, when when you connect with them years after graduation and they have changed like lineage and broken generational trauma and they have carved out a new life for themselves, all out of their own fruition, like that to me is the most amazing thing. Uh, I mean, it just blows my mind.
Well, and it's, it brings about another topic that I think is infiltrated or is a part of our national consciousness where, um, in my opinion, there's been great efforts made for us to focus on a lot of the wrong things. Every one of us are equipped with the uh, the capacity to do great things, and it has nothing to do with the color of our skin, our particular uh, religious choices, or where we were raised. All of those things are influential, but they don't ultimately determine who or what we can become because we all start with the same innate abilities. While we're wired differently and equipped with a lot of different things, different skill sets, nonetheless, the foundation is there. And once, and I guess I'll just go into a little bit more linear progression of what we laid out in the book, what I laid out in the book, and you helped me use my voice to bring to fruition. First, you want to identify, well, what am I passionate about? What are my interests? What is it in particular that um, you and I developed some wording. Uh, what is it that we're doing that we don't even realize? We didn't look at the clock. All of a sudden hours have passed and boom. So those are all clues to begin to help us figure out what might my purpose be. Okay, then once you begin to hone in on the areas that you think, okay, these are the areas that I should probably start to turn over stones and look a little deeper into these areas. Then you begin to ask yourself, through some introspection and a number of other questions and things that are laid out in the book. Okay, once I determine my purpose, how do I then develop it? And that's really where we get into a lot of these tools. If you look on a linear fashion, um, and I mentioned this earlier and didn't complete the thought, so forgive me, but all accomplishment starts with our thinking. It starts with our thoughts. That's where. So then a thought becomes an action becomes a behavior over a certain period of time becomes a habit, and then ultimately our habit structure determines our character. And character means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but if you distill it down, our character is the summation of what we are as an individual. It's why when you come into a room, people want to be around you. And it's, on the other hand, it's exactly the reason that maybe they're like, oh boy, okay, either I'm leaving or they're leaving, one of the two. I don't necessarily want to spend any more time with or around this particular individual. You know, you ask yourself, why might that be? Well, here, in my opinion, here's the answer. They're adding no value. They're,
Mhm.
and I'm not condemning that. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that, you know, the summation of all the choices that those individuals have made, uh, for whatever reason, and because, in my opinion, the arrows are focused this way, they're not necessarily making a difference in this world. I believe that's why we were created and what we're supposed to do. Is try to make a difference. Is it always going to work? Nope. But that's, you know, also part of the process of identifying, developing, and walking and fulfilling your purpose.
Yeah, and you know, when you talk about the figuring out what is your the things that you like or what you can do where you lose all track of time. Uh, I think a lot of us take for granted how important that is for what we do. You know, I've always been a person who can listen to people's stories like all day long. I, you know, I like listening to the cab driver, where they came from, what their, you know, what their life is up to. Love listening to their story. I can be at a party, and rather than talking to a bunch of people, I like to hole up with somebody and go deep and listen to all about their lives. And so, you know, if I wasn't really working and developing on what does that mean for my life, I may have missed the opportunity to create a podcast where I can sit and listen to people's stories and learn from them, and this to be such an important part of my career and what I do. And I think that's one of the things you articulate so well in the book also, is sometimes we have this idea of fulfilling our purpose where if we don't have a global impact and we're not making, you know, millions of dollars, then maybe I haven't found my purpose yet. But it can be so beautifully simple, and be so rewarding for so many of us.
I couldn't agree more. You said a number of things that I just loved. One of them is that you take a genuine interest in other people, and that's one of the reasons that you're successful in your endeavor. I couldn't also agree more with the fact: does what you're doing have to have, you know, a global impact or create millions of dollars for you or your family? No, of course not. It could be something as simple. Let me give you some examples. Okay, this particular couple is not called out in my book, but maybe they'll be in the next one. I don't know. But my brother-in-law Tim and his wife Cindy, who live in central Wisconsin, one of the many things I've known that Cindy in particular, who has uh, and it's another Cindy, by the way, because my other sister-in-law, Cindy, we're confused at all our family gatherings. We never know who you call out Cindy, and at least three or four people stand up. So that's okay, though. One of the things that Cindy Federwitz uh, did way back when, well, there's a number of them, but just listen to this, okay? She used to work at what the Marshfield Clinic at one particular point, and she ran into someone, an older gentleman, that had just a number of challenges in his life going on at that particular time. Not to also include his health, right? I forget exactly how it transpired, but all of a sudden we started showing up at their house, and Grandpa Francis was living with them. And I was like, okay, and I mean, this is years ago, so you got to remember, I like anyone else. For me, life has been a journey, and I was like, well, who is this guy, and where did he come from? He wasn't a relative at all. He was a person that Cindy had met and determined uh, really needed some help. So she and her husband Tim took him into their home, and he literally became like another grandparent to their kids. They, to this day, if you ask their kids about Grandpa Francis, they light up. They talk about what a difference that made. That's one thing I can think of. Another time I heard that Cindy organized because she and her husband, because of what he did, Tim, they owned a trucking business, and the trucking business was part of her family. Her father opened that business, Midstate Truck, in central Wisconsin years ago, and they were very connected to the community. She organized a semi truckload of food, water, and other needed supplies out of the Marshfield area and the central Wisconsin area, surrounding areas, to be collected and driven down to some sort of a disaster relief program in another part of the country. And she just took that on herself and did it. During COVID, uh, we would get notes from them saying that, and Tim was able, because of the amount of effort and blood, sweat, and tears and other things that he sowed into that business, he was able to have his portion of the business bought out, and they retired very early, 55 years young, which was awesome. But during COVID, they would be out on Mondays or Tuesdays. It was one day a week. They would make a meal at their house. They would take and portion it out into, like the kind of packaging you get at the restaurant, okay, to take your leftover food home.
Yeah.
And they would go on a route and take it to elderly folks and people that needed food and deliver food to them.
Mm.
Okay. Now, does that sound like their arrows were focused in or out? Yeah. So that's an example on a more of a uh, local community level of a huge difference that this couple. And then ultimately, if you go back and you look at Frank Vandehay, the founder of the business, one of the parks in Marshfield, Wisconsin, it's a new water park. They took the pool that was there and then added all kinds of water slides and this and that, and redid it and built a new field house, so to speak, or whatever it might be called. I know that's not the right term. And it reopened, and it's now called Vandehay Water Park. Okay, that's an example of the difference that one family could make in that area. That it's like ripples in a pond.
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe that's the best way to think about the impact that one person can have. That rock drops into the pond, and suddenly those ripples go out, and they're all the way across the pond. And whatever size and scope that is, it's still impactful. I was privileged to know a really successful salesperson in the office furniture business, and her cousin or nephew or something um, he became a prominent part of the quality movement, whose name at this particular moment I completely forgot. But nonetheless, he did some definitive, and I would call foundational work around the quality process. He put out a video that I think many people maybe have seen, or they've heard this analogy, but it's of the young man walking on the beach after some very heavy tides and picking up starfish and throwing them back into the ocean.
Mm.
And an older gentleman came up and said to him, "Young man, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm putting the starfish back in the ocean, because if otherwise they'll die if they stay out here in the sun." And the gentleman said, "Well, that's an exercise in futility. You'll look at all of them. You'll never get them all." And he said, "No." And he reached down and picked up another starfish, looked at the gentleman through the starfish back into the ocean. He said, but I got this one, right? It made a difference to that one. And I think that that's a really important part of the message of this book, that it isn't about uh, building the next multinational company, although that could be the result, because we don't know the impact that what we do today is going to have tomorrow or the next day.
Right.
But we do know that if we don't do anything, nothing's going to happen, right?
And that's such a cool piece of it too, is if you don't get overwhelmed by thinking of what is the end result of me living on purpose, and what is the ripple effect, but you just continue to do it over time, that whether it's somebody has some sort of overnight success or whatever it is, but people, I think we'd all be amazed if we were to look back at all of the differences we made when we are living in alignment and on purpose, because that is when those synergistic, impactful things truly happen.
Sure. One of my favorite movies, Lindsay, and I think this is on most people's list, of course, around the holidays, is It's a Wonderful Life.
Mhm.
And when you think about it, in a sense, that movie encapsulates what you and I are discussing right now. Most people have seen it. If you haven't, please. It's not Christmas. I don't care. Go watch it. Right? And I would also say, if you don't shed a tear at the end, then you may want to check yourself. Are you breathing? You might want to check and see if you can still fog a mirror. Okay, because it could be bad. But uh, of course, the essence of that film, of course, is a gentleman, George Bailey, who is out there in this small little community, who basically watches everybody that he grew up with pretty much, move out of Bedford Falls. And I apologize if I'm spoiling it. We'll try that again. If I am spoiling it for everyone, but he watches all these other people move on to bigger things. Sam Wainwright with his plastics company and the big car, and his brother Harry, decorated by the president as uh, a pilot for saving the lives of so many. He's stuck in Bedford Falls and literally, hates the place, and he's just has had his nose to the grindstone, keeping the Bailey building and loan open for all these years, right? And he finally gets to the point where he basically just comes unhinged, because he ends up in some very unscrupulous circumstances, and literally thinks about jumping off a bridge.
Mhm.
And then, as most people know, the story moves forward, and an angel is sent down to help guide him and get him back on track. And the tool that this particular angel ultimately uses is, George is under so much stress. He says, "I wish I'd never been born." Well, in the blink of an eye, that wish is granted, and he gets to walk back through his beloved Bedford Falls and see what the place looks like, and he doesn't recognize it. It's not at all the place that he grew up. And the line in the movie that has always, I guess it just sunk into my uh, soul, so to speak, my consciousness, is his angel Clarence says, "George, you've been given a great gift." He said, "A chance to see what the world would be like without you." And the difference between that one person not being there is night and day. So I guess in a larger sense, that's the purpose of this book, is to try to help people understand that they, in fact, are and can fully become a George Bailey.
Yeah.
They just may not have recognized that yet. No one's taken the time to tell them, you're worth something. You can do more than you think you can. And it's those barriers that so many of us, myself included, deal with day in and day out. We're all crippled by fear. I was frankly a little uncomfortable. I've never done one of these before. I mean, as you can see, I have no problem blathering, but I've never done this before. I've never written a book before. Uh, we're all held hostage to those. It's part of the human condition. But that's what I am the most excited about in this book is it's the equipping. It's the ability to help people get out of their own way. I guess that's my primary observation in the book is I've seen so many people uh, equipped with so many wonderful things that they didn't see that in themselves at all. It's been my observation that a personal and professional development program, and that is made up of these fundamental things. One, what do you read? Two, what do you watch? Three, what do you listen to? Four, who do you associate with? And five, what do you say to yourself? What's your self talk inside? Okay. Those five components are the essence of who we become. We all start out with what we've been given, but those five foundational pillars, those tools, are the essence of what we become. And when those things are in alignment with your purpose, when you do those things on purpose, uh, it's that in my opinion, those five things are the consistent red thread that runs through any person that you ever encounter that is living a life on purpose, that is making a difference. They've discovered those things and they've used them to their advantage.
And what I love about in your book is it doesn't just discuss these and outline them, but there are so many places to pause and reflect for the reader so that they are walking this journey with you so that they can really understand where, have some self-awareness and self-reflection. Like, where am I at with all of these things? What are my habits? What do I, you know, I love the combination of the teaching and the reflection because I think they're both equally important when you're going on this journey.
Absolutely, Lindsay. Um, the common denominator in all of this is change. And whether we like it or not, life moves only in one direction, and that's forward. And I would also posit that in today's world, it's moving at an unprecedented rate. Um, it's moving at the speed of change, and that's driven by the speed of technology. One of the things that I've been aware of, and I can't recall exactly if it's included in the book or not, but I've been told that we, on an annual basis, deal with the amount of change that our grandparents used to deal with in a lifetime. And
Mhm.
every 10 years, that number becomes one half of what it was. It's that it happens that quickly. I go back to our conversation earlier. The fact that I'm not as fully equipped as I could be navigating the tools of social media is an example. Uh, my kids all understand the value of TikTok and uh, how, hey, Dad, did you hear this or see this? It went viral. So I know what that means, but do I fully understand how to leverage it? Nope. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to figure it out. So it may take a little longer, but those, all of, if you don't have a chance to stop, reflect, ask yourself some questions. And then, most importantly, ask yourself, okay, as a result of this revelation, this new piece of information, this new way of looking at things or doing something, what am I going to do differently moving forward? Guess what? Different day, same stuff, right? Yeah. So if of course everyone's heard these things, but that doesn't make them true, but any less true, and it doesn't make them any less impactful. If nothing changes, nothing changes. I believe um, this particular axiom, this particular nugget, might go all the way back to some of the early philosophers like a Plato or a Socrates, but it was popularized by Roger Millikan, the president of Millikan Textiles, back in the equality movement. And his uh, line, or his nugget, was the definition of insanity is doing the same thing today that you did yesterday, yet expecting a different result.
Yeah.
Well, that, in a way, is kind of the cornerstone of self development. You have to be willing to look at yourself introspectively, reflect, and then I guess another gift that I was given that I haven't fully recognized, and it's been, I think, even more emphasized, and I say this with all humility. It's one of my gifts that I've learned to leverage is the power of observation. Many times, people or situations or things that you go through or the people that you deal with, they're in your life to teach you what not to do.
Absolutely.
Necessarily what to do. It's kind of like, And if my sister ever hears this, forgive me. I kid her about this all the time, but I'm from a family of three. I'm the middle kid. I've got an older sister by about 2 years and then a younger brother by 6 years. But I lovingly refer to my sister sometimes when we're, messing around and busting each other's chops as my crash test dummy because she was the first one. She had I mean she and my brother-in-law Michael are talked about in my book, and they talk about people that you want to spend time with. Those They literally, their house could be considered a bed and breakfast because it's just a revolving door of people, friends that they've made that they literally associate with for a lifetime. They're a pleasure to be around, and they are the true definition of servant leadership. But my sister had a wild side. And not to say that I didn't, but I would kind of watch some of the interesting things that she did growing up and go, okay, that one didn't work out so well. Note to self. I
The joy of
recognize
having older
that didn't
siblings.
work
Yeah.
out. Yeah. So,
Yeah. And when you were talking about how doing the same thing, and expecting different results is like the definition of insanity. It reminded me of one of the things I wanted to point out earlier, just in this whole conversation of finding purpose and really living it on a daily basis. I think it's one of the things I love about this book is it does help you to practice living your purpose on a daily basis, because all of us, even if we recognize it, we can get pulled away from it, from stressors uh, or fears or whatever it may be. We can kind of put it to the wayside and maybe not be living on purpose. And so I love that this helps you to make it a daily practice in whichever way it works for your lifestyle, but it really does make it a focus. So each day, it's not just like overall I'm doing this. It's like, no, this is a daily practice that we need to have.
absolutely, Lindsay. And in the closing of the book, I specifically talk about the fact that this is a journey.
Mhm.
It never ends.
Right.
Why? Because if you're not dead, you're not done. Right? Okay. if you can still fog a mirror, then there's still something, you can impact other people. A number of things in the book, a number of nuggets that we discussed, and then I wrote. Um, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That you never climb a mountain in a day, but if you keep taking one step up that mountain, sooner than you realize, if you take a step every day, and sometimes it might be a really small step, candidly, sometimes it might be 3 steps sideways, it might be 6 steps back, it might be 1 step back and 6 steps forward, whatever the dynamics are. The point is that we never accomplish that one thing all in one day, but
Right.
by doing a little bit every day, that's how you all of a sudden get to the top of the mountain and you're looking around and going, oh, well, this is pretty amazing.
And
How did I get here?
yeah, as you talk about your purpose can and will evolve over time. So it's a book I know people are going to come back to time and time again. When I started my publishing company, I remember getting uh, photographs done, and I'm wearing a shirt that says, "Just a girl who loves books." If I were to get that sweatshirt made today, I would say just a girl that loves stories. Like I'm deepening into what is it that's really at the basis, and I could even go deeper, like a girl who loves human experience and discussing it. So the
Sure.
constant evolution.
That would be a large sweatshirt, though. You'd have to, it'd be,
It's not quite
it
catchy.
might have to go around to the back. You could turn around when you, I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Okay, I won't get that one made, but
Well, no stories though. That all fit. And I've seen the picture, by the way. It's a
yeah.
really cool photo. I love it.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it speaks to we're constantly evolving as we should. And so having that check-in and where are we at? How am I serving? What is lighting me up? And that can change over time. And so it's something that we need to keep coming back to. I don't expect to have everything figured out at 43 any more than I will at 53 or 63. It's going to be a constant evolution. And this book is such a wonderful toolkit to continue to carry me on that journey.
Thank you, Lindsay. I really, really appreciate you saying that. Yeah. It's part of, we talk about those things. Well, we discussed so much of this book as I was writing it, and you would help me refine it and tune it up here, and that message, that red thread, what you just talked about, it's really in every part of the book. It's in the introduction, it's in all the chapters, and it a good day to me is one that we moved forward. Are we moving forward? Did we move one step closer to the bringing that all together? Was I in my purpose today? Was it's just it's a mindset. It becomes a habit structure, and when you're in it, as you and I have talked, there's no better place to be.
Yeah. Absolutely. I am so excited for people to get their hands on this book, to go on this journey of further discovering and developing their purpose. So, as of this podcast being out, your book is on Amazon. Where can they find you? Socials, any other place you can direct them to?
Sure, Facebook and Instagram are my two primary. I'm also developing my author page on Amazon. And then once the book has been on Amazon long enough, we will load it onto another content carrier that Lindsay's going to share the name of with you because I can't remember it. And then ultimately, that will lead to the book being available on and through a number of other sources. And also, a big part of why I wrote the book was to utilize my ability to communicate And I am very open to engaging with anybody, any individual organization, whatever it might be, for the opportunity to speak, share, grow, and develop and coach any people in their organizations on this particular topic. So
I'm excited to watch you in just about a couple months here, less than that maybe. But yeah, I get to come watch you speak and share your knowledge. And I'm in the book, and I'm so excited.
thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah. Well, Mitch, this has been so fun. You know, you and I never cease to have lengthy conversations. So I so appreciate you coming on, and I can't wait for people to engage with your book.
I sincerely appreciate you having me, and equally, if not more importantly, all the help that you've been in helping me get this from concept to, hey, I wrote a book.
You did, and it's amazing. Thanks so much.
Thank, thank you, Lindsay. Bye now. Have a great day.